To start with, the art in this is super rough. I want to call it antiquated, but that's not quite the problem here. The features are just super inconsistent. The eyes are super wide and look very odd at certain angles, and even when the eyes are average sized, the shapes of the faces are then super boxy or weird looking. It shifts from looking old school to appearing more modern but just ugly. I'm not a fan of this art style, which is unfortunate for such a highly anticipated story. And on that topic, let's discuss why this was so highly anticipated for me. I'm a sucker for these unique universe settings. Omegaverse is probably one of my favorite settings of all time, closely followed by the Dom Sub universe. I've heard of the Cakeverse before, and it always seemed like something right up my alley. Admittedly, I am very much attracted to the idea of biting and being bitten, and Cakeverse revolves around this instinctual need to consume someone, usually manifesting in biting. I also love the idea of being compelled to kill someone you love and having to restrain yourself while also indulging in them. Cakeverse just speaks to me, and while I have heard of it before, this is the first officially licensed one I'm aware of, so I was all over it. Unfortunately, as much as I like the idea of Cakeverse, I'm not sure if this is the best representation of the setting. Part of what makes this setup so interesting is the danger of it. Forks are compelled to seek out and confine cakes, as cakes are the only way they can feel stimulation as far as flavor is concerned. It's a desperate attraction that teeters the line between lust and gluttony. Every time a fork interacts with a cake, there's always a chance it could lead to the fork taking things too far and actually eating, or at the very least, maiming the cake. That isn't all that prominent in this title. There are mentions of it in the background news reports, some gossip, and a few throwaway lines by Hiroto about feeling like he might be devoured, but that fear never feels concrete in this series. Sure, Izuru is possessive and he does bite Hiroto, but he never comes off as the predator I was really craving from the Cakeverse. However, while this is missing out on the dark and terrifying line between a fork and a cake, it explores something rather interesting: the attraction between a cake and a fork and whether or not it can actually be called love. Hiroto's fear almost instantly transforms into love for Izuru, which makes the whole romance feel hollow and nonsensical, but what's new with these single volume titles? However, he determines his love is not worth exploring since he assumes Izuru's attraction is solely based on the fact that Hiroto tastes good. There's this fear that someday Izuru might find a cake who he thinks tastes better, which would result in Hiroto being abandoned. I'll admit, I didn't consider this angle when I went into the Cakeverse, but I really like it. It's got a fated mates but not really feel to it that provides the romantic notion of destiny, but the tension because it can be threatened at any time. Of course, in such a short title, this is resolved instantly by a short reveal that Izuru fell for Hiroto before he even knew he was a fork. I would love for this concept to be explored more thoroughly in a longer title, as it feels a bit wasted in this one.